Hey guys, thank you so much for joining our virtual town hall with Justin Marr, candidate for Victoria County Sheriff. These are unique times we're in, and we find ourselves, thanks to modern technology, we're still able to come to you. But even with modern technology, we're going to share. Murphy's Law is going to make its head known, make its face known, and here we are. If you're trying to find us on the Facebook post, it's not working right now. Facebook isn't cooperating, so we are on the Shaw Realty YouTube page. But don't worry, if you miss this, it will come. We will upload it. You will get to see it on Facebook. So all the great questions, the great interview, all that coming, no worries. If you're not seeing it live, you will get to see it. We will get to your questions. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for bearing with us during technical difficulties. But we're not going to let it slow us down. We are going to move on.
That's
so
right.
My friend, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. A lot of stuff going on in the world today. The spot for Victoria County Sheriff, I don't know if it could be more important than it is right now.
Yes, sir.
But on that note, before we get there, I kind of want to rewind things a little bit and go back, and I'd like to figure out who you are and learn a little bit about you and just find out all the details that we may not have found out until now. And so with that, let's just rewind and start at the beginning. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, obviously, I'm Justin Marr, pretty well homegrown here in Victoria. Graduated high school in '93. I'm married, have 2 kids. My wife, she's homegrown here as well. I've got a daughter that's a junior up at A&M, and my son's a senior this year at West High School. And then I've been employed with the Sheriff's Office full-time since '98.
So how do how did that journey begin? What made you decide law enforcement was the route that you wanted to go?
Well, after high school, I attended some classes at Victoria College. There were some criminal justice courses I was taking, and those kind of sparked an interest inside of me. And I felt that there was a need inside of me for public service. At that time, the jail had some openings, and there was potential. If you were hired on and you did a good job, they would send you to the police academy, and you can further your career that way and become a certified peace officer. So I applied a couple of times. That finally worked out for me, and the rest is pretty well history. I hired on in the jail in '98, and then in 2000 I was at the police academy, and I came back and was in the enforcement unit from that time on.
I got you. So for somebody that's not familiar with the inner workings and how does that work, when you say you started at the jail, I'm assuming that doesn't mean you were in a patrol car out cruising. I'm assuming that means you started at the jail. So kind of what is that? How does that work? Is that normal where it starts, or was that a position that was open, so you went there? Or?
Well, that was a position that was open. I was not a certified peace officer at the time that I hired on with the jail. I was a detention officer, and basically you're just handling the welfare of the inmates, intake, release, etc. I think that's probably a good position that most people should start out at. You get a good foundation for your law enforcement career.
Kind of makes sense on that. And so then once you were commissioned as a peace officer, is that when you go over and you become a deputy at that point, or how did that transition happen?
Then you become a deputy. And we have deputies inside the jail. We have deputies in every unit in the office. At that time, I moved to the enforcement side, which is the patrol side, out in the field work. Gotcha.
And what other hats do you wear? So you have jailer, you have patrol. Have you worn other hats inside the sheriff's office?
I was on the SWAT team for about 10 years. That was very educational. I had a lot of fun with that. I'm a field training instructor, and I've done quite a bit of stuff like that.
Now, when we hear SWAT team, it sounds super cool right off the bat.
Right.
SWAT team. What exactly is the difference between SWAT team and, say, regular patrol, or just joining a SWAT team means what? What additional duties does that bring to the table, or what's the incentive, or why is SWAT team important, or? Well,
there was no incentive as far as in pay. It's more for just to better yourself. SWAT is going to deal with specialized situations. So you train for those specialized situations. They're not the guys you see out rolling around on the road all the time. There are SWAT members out there, but ultimately, when there's a particular situation that patrol can't handle, or it's better to be handled through SWAT with their tactics, then that's when they're called upon.
Makes sense. you know, the whole point of this town hall was to really, you know, let the public get to know you, figure you out, and learn about you. That being said, what made you decide to, at this stage in your law enforcement career, and what made you decide to take that next step and say, hey, I think it's time I run for sheriff?
Well, obviously, I've got a deep vested interest in this community. You know, I was born, you know, raised here, raised my kids here. The opportunity arose. There's time. It looks like it's time for some new leadership at the sheriff's office, and I think with my firsthand experience there, that's going to allow me to lead the women and men of the sheriff's office on day one.
Gotcha. So for people that don't understand, you know, we just had elections. Why are we still talking elections? Why are we still doing this? I know at one point we had 4 people running for sheriff. Why are we down to 2 people now? And for the ones that don't understand, what is the runoff and why are we having it?
Well, you've got to have 50% plus 1 to move forward in the election. With 4 people, that's pretty difficult to do.
Yes, sir.
We're very pleased. We ended with 45%. My opponent that I'm in with right now ended with 42. So to all my supporters that got out there, I just need you to come out one more time. I'm very blessed with the amount of support that showed up.
Gotcha. When is the runoff election? I know with everything going on with the coronavirus and all that, I understand it's been moved. So when is the new election?
Right now it's been moved to July 14th is the election day.
Okay.
July 6th through the 10th is early voting.
Okay. And all that will run the same as it did the first time? We just rerun it basically, right?
Yes, sir. Just 1 week of early voting is the only difference as opposed to 2 weeks.
Good deal. I got you. So on that note, you know, obviously they have a choice to make now, and it's been narrowed down from 4 till 2. You know, I'm sure the big question you get all the time is, why Justin Marr? You know?
Well, I think it's strictly just because of my experience. I mean, I've got firsthand knowledge of the way that office works inside and out, on the detention side and the enforcement side. I've been in a leadership role for many years there, and been very successful, and I believe that the men and women there know I have their backs. In turn, I think they have my back as well.
Understood. You know, with campaigns and elections and all that fun stuff, rumors and campaigns seem to just go hand in hand. And have you discovered that in your journey to run for sheriff, have you heard rumors about your potential leadership, or, you know, hey, if Justin's elected, he's firing everybody, or he's hiring everybody? Have you heard any rumors you want to address? Anything you want to put to bed or confirm?
Yeah, I've heard quite a few of them. I'm not going to go into every one of them. I think the first one that started was I was not a proactive law enforcement guy, and that I would disband the special crimes unit. That's completely false. Being a patrol deputy, I know firsthand the benefits of proactive law enforcement. Mm-hmm. I've lived it for the last 20 years. Special crimes is very essential, and they're a proactive unit just by nature of what they do, and they're a very vital, essential role in what we need to keep doing, which is fighting crime in the community. So that's, you know, completely false news. Some other stuff I'd heard is that I've passed up many opportunities to promote, and I'm a disgruntled employee. First of all, I'm proud to work for the sheriff's office. I always have been. As far as in the promotion deal, that's some things I want to change. I have not passed up any opportunities. They haven't presented themselves. And that's some of the problem that I want to address is, once you get above the sergeant level at the sheriff's office, historically, there's no career progression plan. You're just kind of treading water. Mm-hmm. A lot of the positions from higher up, they're either brought in from the outside, and there's a few that have been brought up from within, but the bulk of them have come from the outside. But there's no testing, you just don't have a plan in place. And, you know, it gets real stagnant at that level.
So that's something you're going to work on there.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And I forgot to mention in the beginning, one of the points of this virtual town hall is we were going to take questions on Facebook, and we've had some that have been submitted already that we're going to get to, and with the YouTube and the technical difficulties, I don't know how well these may or may not come through, but I still want to encourage people, ask your questions, get them out there, and we'll make it a point, and Justin will make it a point to make sure he gets to them. But In the meantime, we have had some questions that were submitted from Facebook that I'd like to roll into, and don't worry, I've got plenty more for you. But I wanted to address a couple of these, especially since we're having difficulties on Facebook.
Right.
I wanted to get some of these questions answered. And one of the first ones that comes from Facebook is, what are your plans to improve the sheriff's office? Hire and keep quality officers, bring the jail into compliance, and serve and protect all the citizens of Victoria.
Well, to improve the sheriff's office, I mean, I think within our employees, we need to develop a sense of ownership. That's with the employees as well as the community. We also, I mean, I would like to put in place a career progression plan, which is kind of what we just talked about, something that they understand there's a future for them here. I need to work with the commissioners on making us competitive with salary packages, as well as a step pay plan put in place. And I think if we can address some of those issues, we'll definitely be moving forward.
Roger that, roger that. The next one that we have that comes from Facebook is, do you plan to hire more deputies? And if so, how many and how will this be accomplished?
Well, the need for more deputies on the street is going to happen sooner or later. The problem is, you know, that's taxpayer money, and we work with a pretty tight budget. There are several things I'd like to try, and the main goal is public safety. If we need more deputies on the street, we need to get them out there. I owe it to the community, or I would owe it to the community, and the commissioners do as well. We need to, I would look into some type of grants and stuff, like there's a COPS grant out there. That doesn't cost the taxpayer anything, and it would allow a few bodies out there on the street. That would help. The first priority is, we've got a lot of budgeted positions that are not full. I think we just need to fill those first. That's not necessarily adding anybody, but it'd make a great difference.
Kind of plug some of the gaps?
Yeah, yes sir, for sure.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, that's a good point. Now, the next one, I'm going to skip the next Facebook question. I'm going to loop back around to it because it's kind of discussing the current situation with the coronavirus and stuff, and it's probably a good time to jump into it. And so, on that note, you know, I'd kind of leading into that, I'd like to know, what is your current relationship with local government employees and our officials, so to speak, you know, our leadership and everybody running this? How's your rapport with them, or how do you plan on it being in the future?
Well, I have a good rapport with them. I mean, I've been part of the county for over 20 years. I seem to work well with them. Obviously, it's something you're always going to strive to improve as you progress through. But I would say it's a good rapport.
Now, with that, you know, what do you think of the Victoria County's response to the coronavirus and where we're at? And when I ask that, I'm not asking you to armchair quarterback. You know, obviously we have the luxury of sitting here and being able to judge, you know, not on the fly, but what they've done to this point. So I don't say that to throw rocks or to degrade, and I know a lot of people are doing the best that they can. But that said, you know, as a potential leader of Victoria County, especially in the sheriff's office, how do you see this unfolding? How do you see it playing out with our officials, with the virus? You know, where do we at? How does our response gauge to you?
Well, I mean, I think we're doing a good job considering we've never dealt with something like this before. You know, I think the most important thing they're doing is keeping the community informed. That's going to be a major part in fighting this pandemic. When it's all said and done with, like anything, you know, any hurricane situation we've dealt with, you know, I'm sure we will build on it and try to improve it. That's what we're supposed to do. But I believe for the most part they're doing well right now. Gotcha.
Some of the questions that I'm starting to get, you know, start talking about the private rights and constitutional rights and for lack of better terms, an intruding government. And so, leaning back around, I'm going to circle back to that Facebook question we talked about, and this is a question that they asked. I've read that as a response to the coronavirus, that the federal government's Department of Justice is considering suspending some constitutional rights. As sheriff, would you and your office take part in any type of gun confiscation if it were ordered by the federal government?
Well, the simple answer to that is no. The Second Amendment is a God-given right that shall not be infringed. And I don't really have anything else to say about it. We would not take part in that.
Roger that, roger that. You know, on that note, has there been anything that, you know, right now with potential lockdowns, things like that, you know, we should all listen to our officials. We should all follow that guidance. We should all, heed these warnings and recommendations that we are given. Where do you fall on the law enforcement backing? I understand you guys will be the ones that they send in if mandatory curfews are, those type of things. Where do you balance that freedom of rights to a government response and public safety? I know it's a very fine line, and I'm not, from a surface level, 30,000 feet out, where is that line,
With my office, we would not enforce any kind of restrictions or sanctions that are violation of the Constitution, rights that everybody has, plain and simple. There's other areas that, the big key is to get everybody educated and know that this is something serious, and they need to heed the recommendations, and we can get through this with no problem. Gotcha.
Campaigns are definitely a roller coaster. It's a lot of highs, a lot of lows. During this whole process, what's been your biggest learning curve? What's been the, holy crap, I didn't want to wake up and have to do this today, but I'm going to, what are some hurdles that you had to overcome to put your neck out there on the line and do this?
Public speaking.
You mean you don't like just standing in front of a room full of people, turning on a bunch of cameras and just going?
No, not at all.
I don't know. You must be in you're the weird guy. Everybody likes that, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. You're way more normal, my friend, than you probably think. But that's probably been a lot for you. Is going from probably somewhat of a quiet guy to all of a sudden you're having to stand out in front of everybody.
Yes.
All the time.
It's been a learning curve, that's for sure. Something that's definitely taken me out of my element.
But you seem to have adapted pretty well to it.
Yeah, I'm trying to improve every day.
Gotcha. Well, have you noticed that it's, maybe this 337th interview isn't as bad as, say, the first one?
Correct, I agree.
Now, we could argue that was because you were doing it with me, but we'll I'm just kidding. We'll move on. What am I forgetting right now that, Caleb, we've talked all this great stuff. We've done all this, but you have not touched upon, Victoria County does this so well. Our drug interdiction programs are amazing. What are some positive highlights? A lot of times, sadly, with law enforcement, we hear negatives. We hear that. What are some of the positive things that the sheriff's office has been accomplishing and getting done? And with that, what do you want to build upon? And I know the career progression, we've gone through some of those, but as a whole for Victoria County, what are some of the things you'd like to take the baton and just really run with it? Some additional things in the community.
Well, obviously, like you said, our drug interdiction group, those guys do amazing work. Their stats speak for themselves.
And forgive me interrupting. Again, somebody I don't know anything about the sheriff's office. What's their mission? What's their point? I get the drug interdiction. I know the names. It's all in the name.
Right.
Expand upon that, especially since it's been kind of a rumor central.
A lot of it is. They get out there and reach into more of the regional public safety stuff, traveling through Victoria. But a lot of it finds its way back here, so it blends in with your local public safety as well. They kind of work in both areas, and it's just trying to get they get to focus strictly on the criminal element. They're not necessarily responding to a bunch of calls for service like your patrol guys do.
Yes, sir.
So that allows them to excel at the proactive side of law enforcement.
And you guys, you are not an island. Like while there's PD and there's SO, you guys still work hand in hand, and there's you each have your own area of responsibilities, but you're two separate entities. How does that work? How do you, say my neighbor's being loud and I call. Do they send PD? They send you? How is it determined, for those of us who don't know, what makes the decision on it, if it's PD that shows up, if it's SO, or how does that kind of work?
If there's a lot of it is just depends on the caller, who they call.
Okay.
A lot of times they'll call the sheriff's office directly, or they call the police department. If they call the police department and the crime or the call is out in the county, the sheriff's office is going to be the one that responds. But we also respond in town. I would say a bunch of our calls are in the city limits, where they call us directly. But both agencies, we back each other up. You're everywhere.
Do the 911 dispatchers, does that route to PD, or does that also, if they fill the call that they think is best suited to you guys, they go to you all?
It goes to the city, and if it looks like it's something that's county related or involved in the county, they ship it to our dispatch.
Okay, roger that. What, with things like this, is a lot of the focus, are you guys still doing business as usual, or are now you assisting the city and PD on, with the coronavirus, working on this? Or everything right now seems to be kind of turned on its head a little bit, and everybody's really just trying to adapt and,
right.
and overcome. And on that note, I've really noticed what a spectacular job Victoria businesses have done, implementing and adapting on the fly and changing to takeout. And a lot of that they did before the government, made it mandatory. They did it on their own, which I thought was great. And it's been really neat to see the community just take a tragedy and flip it around and shine. But I've also noticed that it's not just the businesses doing that. Our leaders are doing a good job. They're doing their best. I've seen PD have a real heavy presence out there. I've seen you guys out there. Mm-hmm. What is going into this, or with future uncertainties, and I'm sure it's probably going to get a little crazier before it gets a little bit better.
Probably so.
From a sheriff's office point of view, what is some wisdom or some guidance that you could pass along to people to kind of maybe bring a little comfort and calmness to the storm?
Well, first of all, we're going to be there for the citizens if they need us. We're not going to just lock our doors and not show up to work. We will be there through the thick and thin of this situation. I do want people to listen to what's being recommended. Follow those guidelines, and it'll help us all out. Because, while we're out there to go help them, we're not trying to contaminate ourselves as well.
Yes, sir.
We don't get to quarantine at the house, so to speak.
Right.
We've got to be there for you.
Yes, sir, and you will be there. And
yes.
That's an important thing, because I've noticed it in some areas, around Dallas area and stuff like that, they're overrun to a degree, and they've put out that they're not answering shoplifting calls, they're not answering burglary, those type of things, and I haven't seen that here, and we're not at that. But I would also probably stress that you guys could use the support of the community to not overburden you with call if you need, I assume, but
right.
Maybe right now, if the cat's stuck in the tree next door, it's probably not the time to call, because your resources are probably.
I agree. The cat will find its way down.
Yeah, that's probably why I was thinking. When you see me checking my phone, guys, I'm not just this isn't important to me. I'm checking to see, but with the Facebook moving around and stuff like that, we're getting our questions in this way right now.
On that one question, you had talked about how to improve and bring people out as well. More people out. One thing that I forgot I want to address is we need to cross-train a lot of our units, okay? In a time of need like this, then they can file out and help, and that'll increase our manpower or make us much more efficient.
Well, that
I would want to do.
That makes total sense. It kind of ties into my next question what do you see as the biggest need of the sheriff's office right now, and with that need, how would you address it?
The biggest need is going to be, we've got to fill the vacancies we've got on the detention side as well as the enforcement side. Public safety is in jeopardy at that point when you're working half staff, half full, and then officer safety. We don't need any of our men or women getting hurt out there because we didn't fill positions.
Understood. That makes sense. If somebody, say right now, or when this storm blows over and all that, if somebody wanted, they see what you're doing, they're like, hey, I want to join up. I'd love to go out there. And if I decided right now I wanted to go work with you guys, what would be that process? How would I do that?
Well, it would obviously start with an application. You're talking about hiring on with
Yes,
us?
sir.
Yeah. You fill out your application. There's some testing. There's background interviews and some physical testing as well as regular book testing. And just start the whole process. We're definitely looking for some good people.
Gotcha. On that note, do you, going into if you do become sheriff, do you plan on, with recruiting, do you plan on trying to change things to increase recruiting, or I'm sure there's a million things
right.
that you could tweak across the
board. We need to
but
become more aggressive with it, no doubt. Really get out and seek some of these people that I think we might be missing. We have a lot of stuff we can offer them, the There's potential for the academy down the road. Hopefully there's some career progression plans in place, as well as pay step and stuff like that.
Because the career progression, I mean, if people feel like a few years in, or I think you said past sergeant, that they've just hit a brick wall and that's it, what's the point of coming every day?
Well, what happens is, like the situation we're in now, 50% of our licensed personnel have less than 2 years experience.
Wow.
And I think that goes because we don't have something like that in place. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why, but that's definitely one of them. We don't want to become a startup agency where we spend all this money recruiting, hiring, and training these people to where they give us a year or two and then they go off somewhere else. We want to keep that investment here in our community.
Yeah, because we see that across the board a lot, and seems to be one of the issues that Victoria sometimes has is keeping its people here. We get them spun up, and then they launch off to different locations and stuff. And so, yeah, I see the wisdom in that.
Yes,
absolutely. One of the things I hear a lot about, because of the Crossroads location that we sit in and all that, is human trafficking. And what do you see as the U.S.'s role in combating human trafficking, and more specifically, what role does the sheriff's office play in trying to combat that?
Well, I mean, we assist in, as far as in the smuggling and stuff like that, we work pretty close hand in hand with Border Patrol. When we run across those situations out in the field, contact is made with them. There's some steps that are taken, and it's ultimately up to Border Patrol whether there's something further going to go on or not, if they're going to authorize detention or something like that, detainers. That's kind of our role right now.
And Victoria, we get our fair share that passes right through here, I'm assuming, of not only human traffickers, but drug traffickers. And, we sit on a pipeline that we're kind of a main vein for all this. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And
you guys, in that same breath, you work with different. This is not just you guys and, say, Victoria PD that are doing this. You guys work with organizations and other sheriff's office and police departments, statewide and nationwide. Am I correct?
Yes.
Good.
We work with Border Patrol. We'll work with, there's some regional coalitions together that we work with the surrounding counties, and it's all about teamwork.
Kind of helps you cover more ground and all of that. Do you? With that teamwork thing, I've noticed that a lot of the big the drug pipelines and stuff. I think we just had one not too long ago, and with Refugio County, or with the sheriff of, I forget exactly who the players were, but I think you guys had some AK. I think there was a SCAR in one of those things, and some big heavy guns and all those. Was that one going north or south? And forget my memory on that, and I may have caught you off guard. And
I believe that was going southbound.
Roger that. Okay. Yes, what would you, talking those drugs and guns and all that, how do we curtail the flow of that? How do we stop the flow of those drugs coming into the community? How do we tamp that down?
I think just aggressive police tactics, and it goes to, trying to be involved in educating our youth as well. Try to steer when we can, we deal with the schools. We provide the security there for all the campuses, and we need to kind of reach out to some of these kids and try to help push them in the right path early on. But then on the other side, it's just, we need to be aggressive and proactive with our patrol.
Well, and that makes sense to me, because those students in school, that's your potential next wave of.
That's our future.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think you could do to help foster that and to grow that? Sadly, all too often kids look at and they're scared of police. And I knew growing up. I'm biased. My dad was an officer, and so those guys were and still are heroes to me. And I look up to them. But sadly, not everybody does. What are some steps that you could take to help change that perception of our youth, and not only our youth, but our public as well? The ones that don't like you guys. What can we do to change that and work on that?
I think we just need to somehow deal with the community on, we're people too. We need to reach out to them and make a conscious effort to actually do that, and not just show up and do the job of security. We need to develop a community service thing. We need to kind of bring that back, the community service type program.
Good.
We had one at one time, and it went away for various reasons, and it's something that I think probably would be beneficial to the community.
Well, and I always like when I see you guys out there, and I think Victoria and Victoria County does a really good job of, as a whole, we support our law enforcement and we take care of it, but like anybody else, we could do better also, and we could show our support better also, and I think that that's a great point, and a great thing to do is to be constantly working on that community interaction, and because you guys, you're our responders.
Well, we
You're there
need
to help us.
our employees vested in the community, but we need the community vested in us as well.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
because that's a two-way street for sure, and again, I think that I think the sheriff's office and Victoria law enforcement as a whole, you guys have done a good job, and you all are well thought of and well liked in the community, and nothing we can't perfect upon, but you guys do a good job, and we're grateful for you.
You should always look to improve.
Yes, sir.
And that's what we need to do.
What do you see as the sheriff's primary role? I know he wears a million hats and he's got his hands in a million things, but if you had one primary thing, this is my job.
It's the public safety of this community, period.
All right, yeah, that's you can get into all the details.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I mean,
that.
it can branch, but I mean that is the primary goal, should be.
Does the buck stop with you? Or one of the things that I get frustrated in as a business owner and as in business myself is I'll call or I'll go to do something and it's well, so and so didn't do this or that didn't whatever, or let me flip it on you. I'll take that as a business owner. I'll take a call sometimes on a house I've never seen from an agent that I've never talked to or something like that, and I take a good old butt chewing for something that I didn't have anything to do with on a house I never saw. But that's my role as the owner and the broker of that company, is to field those calls, calm those people, and try to tamp down that situation. Do you see yourself in the same way, or is this like, hey, I got this ticked off dude on the phone, I don't want this guy, let me kick him off to somebody else?
No, with what you said, I will handle that situation. That's part of the game.
Yes, sir.
I'm to report to the citizens. They're the ones that put me in that position. I respect that.
Gotcha. And discussing that leadership position, now that we are heading into this runoff, what is the difference between you and your opponent on this? If you had to narrow it down, I'm not talking eye color here or anything crazy, but what if you guys had to narrow it down, or if you had to narrow it down, what would you say the primary difference is between you and your opponent, or more specifically, what do you bring to the table that enables you to be the best candidate here?
Well, the primary difference is I've got over several decades of full-time law enforcement experience. My opponent does not have that. I've also got lots of experience in leadership on a paramilitary type organization with a rank structure, as opposed to like a civic organization. There's a difference there.
Absolutely, there's
that type
difference.
of leadership is definitely different, and I've got years of experience on that, and I think those are the two things that stand out most.
Gotcha. No, and that makes sense. Right now, guys, I'm checking to see if we have any questions. We're about 45 minutes into this. Again, we appreciate you bearing with us on the technical difficulties on this, and we want to encourage everybody that if your question, you were trying desperately to get it through and we didn't get to it, again, keep submitting them to the campaign, get them into the page, get them all that.
I will definitely answer your questions. If you get them to me on my messenger, besides all the problems we're having now, I will get back to you and answer your question.
How fun has it been getting on Facebook? For some reason, I don't know if I saw you as like an overly Facebook type of guy before all this started. So
I've never had Facebook until this.
It's a learning curve, isn't it?
It is. Trust me, the wife helps me out a lot because I'm like, I don't know what button I'm supposed to.
Well,
I'm getting it down.
They'll keep us in line a little bit. I've learned that if I'll just listen to my wife on things and quit arguing a lot, it kind of saves my bacon a lot of the time.
It works. We just don't want to tell them that.
Nobody's listening to this. It's just me and you talking here, but the whole social media thing, that's where everybody's at. But it's a weird. I mean, just like now, we had this whole, hey, here's what we're gonna do. We got this down. We'll field questions, and then bam, it's not working, and here we are making the best of it.
Yeah. Adapt and overcome.
Yes, sir. But I will say that is one of the neat things, because 20 years ago this wouldn't be happening. And
No, you couldn't. Typically we want to be out shaking hands and meeting people, and the situation we're in now, I can't really do that.
Right.
Nobody can. So this is a way to reach out there. I mean, we're fortunate we have it.
Right. And and here's the thing, we can always do a redo on this, and like I said, the fact that you want to answer these questions, they can always get them in and submit some more. So we got the runoff coming on. We went through how you got in here, what made you decide to do law enforcement. What do you want to do when you retire? I know that's a random question. I know retirement's a long ways away, but what do you want to do when you grow up? I guess is the good question there.
Spend a lot of time on the bay and then in the mountains.
Gotcha.
We go to Colorado every year. It's kind of a family vacation deal since I was little, and I enjoy my time up there, but I also spend a lot of time on the coast here. I like to fish and hunt.
Colorado, that's my spot too. The wife and I,
beautiful.
Yes, sir. We go and we spend about 3 different towns, and we just hike, and it's amazing. And so you're a fisher as well?
We do a lot of fly fishing up there, and then we'll take some Jeeps up there and do a lot of the 4x4 trails. It's usually we go in July, so it's the best time to get out of this part of Texas.
Yes, here. We should have done this there.
Yes,
if we would have been thinking, that's where we could have done this. Looping back around, when you decided, like you said, that hey, I feel drawn towards law enforcement. Was there anybody in your life though that like I told you earlier, my dad's my hero. I look up to my dad. He's, retired Texas Ranger, all of that. And while I took a different path and went military versus law enforcement, it was still my dad that inspired me into that. Was there anybody in your life that, kind of inspired you into that journey of law enforcement, or was it just that sheepdog nature that you had?
I think it was just the sheepdog nature. Taking some of those classes, like I said, it just really sparked an interest inside, and I felt that was my calling. So just very fortunate that opportunity was in place at the time.
Gotcha, outstanding. So where do we go, from, what's your planned route, from here until, when did you say the runoff was?
July 14th.
July 14th, so you got some time to kill here.
Yes, sir.
What do you plan, what's the circuit that you run in here? I know these things changing on the fly, especially since, with new restrictions and all this, but where does it go from here? Do you have to wake up every day and you and your team kind of figure out how this goes? I mean, I doubt that hey, here's your instructions, 1, 2, 3, 4 on how to do this.
Well, I mean, we're learning as we go. Hopefully we'll probably do some more of these. If that's the only way we can reach out to people, then that's what we're going to do. Try to make myself as available and approachable as I can. Hopefully this stuff clears up here in a month or so, and maybe we can get back on the regular game plan.
Roger that. What do you see as the most important? How would you say how would you operate efficiently as a public leader? What is the attributes, the characteristics, that you would bring to the table, or that you think are important to be an efficient public leader?
Well, I mean, I think you need to multiply the resources you have in place, and that goes back to what some of the cross training. Be able to get the most out of everybody, and then on the budget side, it's just the conservative values. Be mindful of the taxpayer's dollar.
Because it's very, I know from a taxpayer perspective, it feels like they're always going up on us. But at Victoria County Sheriff's Office, you guys have been pretty solid, correct, on not raising the tax rate, or not. Well,
we don't necessarily raise the tax rate at the sheriff's office. We present a budget to the commissioner's court. In turn, they're going to determine the price of public safety.
And it's a limited set of funds that basically everybody in that county umbrella, for lack of better terms, kind of competes for. Right. Not that you guys duke it out in the street, but there's limited funds.
And that's when you can branch out and with some of the grant opportunities that are out there for training as well as manpower. and try to capitalize on those, and that will build the office without being a burden to the taxpayer.
Yeah, and I'm sure they would appreciate that.
Yes,
because I know in real estate that's one of the things is taxes are just so high that people's buying power is low. But in that same breath, it's absolutely critical to me that you guys have what you need, because if I don't have the materials I need for my job, it might be something as crap, I don't have a stapler, and whatever, but you guys are dealing with, it could be anything from vests to bullets to patrol vehicles, all that kind of stuff, and so it's a little bit different.
It is, and unfortunately it's expensive, but that's the price of public safety. It's what the citizens deserve.
Is there, in that breath, is there anything that just, off the top of your head that you're like, hey, our vest, our canines need vest, or we're hurting. I guess what I'm saying is there anything from a public point of view, a public standpoint, that we could support you guys? I know there's like the Victoria 100 Club. Mm-hmm. They do a great job of supporting you guys and doing stuff, and so we always like to support them and donate to them. But is there anything that the public could do to back you guys directly, or like we like to take pizza to you guys and stuff, but that doesn't really.
But that stuff like that is keep it going, because that goes a long ways. Y'all aren't there to see everybody that comes in and grabs the cookies or the pizza, but it's definitely appreciated. It's nice. It's a nice token. We don't always get to see that.
Well, and
we're dealing with people a lot of times at one of their worst moments in life, and we try to have a positive impact on that. But you're not always running across somebody and they're that's going to be the happiest person to see.
And I would probably argue about majority of the time they're not, and so you've got to control that whole situation as well. Yeah.
We either can't get there quick enough, or they don't necessarily want to see us in right then.
Yes, so that makes sense. So when this whole ordeal started, when you went and sat down and talked to the wife and said, hey, I think I'm going to do this, and went and filed the paperwork, made it official, all that. What did you think your odds were? Did you see yourself as the underdog? Did you see it as the Hail Mary pass, or were you cautiously optimistic, or where did you fall on it?
I felt I was probably the underdog at the time, considering how all this came out. There's a lot of people that were on the ballot. I was going up against, my opponent. He had the sitting sheriff's endorsement, and he outspent me 3-1, I believe, on the campaign, and we came out on top, and I'm very proud of that. I owe it all to my supporters. I can't do it without them. We need to make sure we get back out there in July and do it again.
And that's what I was going to say, is where did you find yourself now? And that election night dragged on and on and on and on. I think I went to bed that night and we still didn't have an answer on things. And what was, did you stay up that night to hear it, or did you go ahead and call it a night?
There was no sleeping.
What just wasn't happening?
No. It was frustrating. I know there were some problems with the machines and the way the numbers were showing up to us on our side. It was frustrating, but in the end, we walked out of there with a smile on our face and ready to do it again in July. And yeah, you get to all over again. Yes.
and all that. But I think it'll be different this go around, because it's like you said, in a town the size of Victoria, et cetera, when there's 4 candidates, and and Victoria's just big enough / small enough that everybody can know everybody, and all that.
Mathematically, you're not gonna. It's pretty difficult to get that 50% mark when you're dealing with that many people. The hardest part of the game is just to get the people back out to vote. Typically, as a community, we don't have a great voter turnout. I don't understand that, but that's just the way it is. So,
and that's always odd to me, because when you show up to go vote, it feels like everybody's participating, because you got the line, you got all that, but then you're right, I see those numbers, and it's just like, oh, come on, guys. And and I hear a lot of people, vote regardless, just vote. I'd rather you be an informed voter. Yes, I'd rather you be an informed voter and stuff like that. What is something? Do you have any ideas on what we could do to improve voter turnout in Victoria, or what could we do to get people more invested in local politics, and because I argue your local politics are the most important ones that are in your day-to-day world. You know, I see so many people losing their minds, good or bad, over the president. I see all these type of things, but a lot of those on a daily basis don't interfere with your life. But the local stuff, this does. And you're right. I think more people vote in national elections than they do in their local elections. And
I think it's just up to the candidates to try to motivate the people, motivate their base, and get them out there, have a connection with the people. They should, because like you said, it's local.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people, you know, they're focused on the national level stuff. That's what is coming across their phone on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
At a local level, there's probably not as much of that.
Were you pretty excited afterwards to see the support that you got, to see?
Oh, it's overwhelming.
You know, is it a weird feeling driving down the street and seeing your signs everywhere, and, you know, and all people vote, you know, making posts about you on Facebook and stuff? And
I'm very humbled by the amount of support. Great group of guys, and you know, they obviously believe in me, and we're gonna hopefully take this home in July.
Outstanding. Well, and when you say take it home, hold on, I got one more for you. I was almost there. When you say take it home, though, is this home for you, or is this a job? Is it I get that you live here, but is this a stepping stone? Is this something that you're, hey, I'm going to take this and I'm going to use it to launch me into something else? Or
Victoria is my home, plain and simple. I have no desire to run off into Washington or Austin or anywhere like that. I'll do what I need to do as the sheriff to make this county run efficiently, but this is it. This is my career.
Understood, loud and clear. Is there anything before we wrap this? You know, again, I apologize to our guests. I apologize that we had the technical difficulties. We weren't able to do this exactly how we wanted. Probably just gives us an excuse to do it all over again. But again, thank you for bearing with us on the technical difficulties. And again, this will be on the Shaw Realty YouTube page, but you should hopefully be able to see this on Facebook as well. We're going to make sure we get it uploaded. Anything I've forgotten, my friend, that we need to address or get past?
No, just like I said, I'd like to say thanks again to all my supporters, and stay with me and bear through all this. We'll get there.
Can they still get the yard signs, any of that kind of stuff? Do you have any in your campaign? If they want to get stuff to support your campaign, how can they reach out and do so?
Facebook is the best way. Just send me a message or a comment. I will get to you quickly. And we'll do what we can to get everything taken care of.
Good deal. Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. I think this will be valuable information for people, and I appreciate you and all the candidates for putting your neck out there. And you know, one of the things about politics that can be so ugly is when you put your hat in the ring for positive reasons and try to get back. A lot of times you can just get shredded and torn apart. And you know, and one of the things is I haven't seen, you know, of course you have to highlight differences and all of these things, but, you know, I sincerely appreciate each and every one of you candidates that this is an intrusion into your homes, this is an intrusion into your friendships, into, you know, they're never easy, and they're a lot of stress, and they had extra gray hair, and it's not like we want any more of that. Yeah, I mean, I heard you were just completely dark before this thing started.
Since November.
Oh, it's rough, you know.
I definitely have a new respect for anybody. Obviously, we all have our differences, but anybody that throws their hat into the ring, because I mean, this is a difficult situation. Like you said, it intrudes into your family life and everything. I have definite respect for anybody that runs.
Yes, sir, and as do I. And again, and thank you for doing so, and thank you for willing to run for Victoria County and put it all out there for the residents of the county. And again, guys, thank you so much for your time. We apologize one more time for the technical difficulties. Justin Marr, Victoria County candidate for sheriff. You can reach out to the campaign on Facebook, get your yard signs, get your, you know, if you have questions still, because we couldn't answer them because Facebook didn't like us today. But please feel free to reach out. Thank you for tuning in. Justin Marr for Victoria County Sheriff. Anything else, my friend?
We'll see y'all in July. Well, before then, but for sure July.
See you then. Thank you so much, guys.